I have always had conflict with people who dislike and disregard their mother-in-laws. I was always defensive of them, but when I got married to my husband, I thought otherwise. My name is Miracle, and recently my husband and I were the latest and newest couple in town. After our rosy and spacious wedding, which was the talk of the town for days, we were living in harmony and in a cordial relationship until my mother-in-law visited. At first, I thought she was so nice and kind to me, until she started complaining about everything I did. I tried to adjust for the sake of peace. She wouldn't have any of that. She finds little opportunity to oppress me. Each time I prepared a meal, she would either insult the food or be the reason the food is either salty or spicy. I had caught her many times adding some spicy ingredients to the food. One time I confronted her about what she did wrong, but she was so defensive. Why won't I add more salt to it, when you weren't trained in how to cook by your dead mother? I almost lost my cool because she was my husband's mother and an elderly woman. I would have given her the taste of the pain she was putting me through. I held myself back. I threw away the pot of soup and quickly made another one. My husband was also defensive. He had told me to put up with her until she went. I respected him, but Mama was not ready to go. This continued for a while. I was beginning to lose hope and my marriage was at the verge of wrecking, but I stayed on because I love my husband. My husband is the only one who knew me. He married me as a virgin. So one evening, I prepared white rice and made a tasty stew. I had made the stew to be in a way that was less watery. I prayed silently in my heart that my mother-in-law would enjoy it. But nature has it in mind that people are wicked. She tasted it. Immediately she threw out the content on my face and pepper got into my eyes. I struggled to get water. When I finally did, there was my husband sit without saying a word or cautioning her. I was dumbfounded and surprised. "Take this poison you called food away from here, you witch," she insulted. My husband stood up and went upstairs. He came down with the car key. "Honey, you won't say anything about this?" I asked, stunned. Instead he ignored me and turned to his mother. "Mama, let's go somewhere and have something nice to eat." I couldn't believe it, my heart was full of fury. But I made the worst mistake. I tried to obstruct their way but received a thunderous slap from my husband, and that alone made me unconscious. But my husband cared less. I guess I woke up in the same position I was left. The house was quiet. They weren't back. It was past 8 p.m. and the incident was at 5 p.m. As long as my mother-in-law was deciding everything that goes on in my marriage, I knew I was never going to be free. I had to bear the maltreatment apportioned to me by her and my husband. One bright afternoon, they parked up a few of their luggages and left, without saying a word to me, only to return a week afterwards with a strange lady. I wondered who she was. I could attest to it that she wasn't a maid from her outward appearance. She was expensively and exquisitely dressed in a dazzling blue gown that tightly fitted her curvy shape. It was provocative. My heart skipped a beat. Her name is Anita. She was the husband's new wife. That was when I realized they traveled to the village for her marriage rite. The pain struck deep in my heart. What did I do wrong? I subconsciously asked no one in particular. "Welcome to my son's house, the one and only legitimate daughter-in-law. This is your husband, and only you have the say over everything here." My husband ordered that I prepare food for her. They went up to refresh, leaving their luggages behind for me to carry. I was in a state of depression and frustration that I barely noticed the food I placed on the fire was burning. I didn't notice my husband's presence when he turned off the gas. I was jolted back to reverie with a hot slap from my mother-in-law. Tears welled up my eyes from the burning sensation on my cheek. She charged towards me again. I retaliated, but my husband began to hit me. He punched my stomach. I screamed and he stopped. I felt pain and blood started flowing down my legs. I screamed, yet they turned a deaf to me and left. I called our house help, who assisted to get me to the hospital, where I was told I had miscarried a baby. I wept and the doctor and nurses consoled me. The doctor asked me what happened, but I lied that I had fallen off as a result of the spill of water at home. And the bruises on your skin? Madam, speak up, it's never too late until it is late. He questioned. I love my husband so much, I was willing to give him another chance. I refused to tell him the truth. I was discharged after 2 days, only to return back to another journey of pain. Upon my arrival, they began making mockery of me. I just stood there unable to move. Just a little beating. You slept in the hospital for 3 days. What will you do when you receive the main one? This is just a tip of the iceberg, wait until the real drama unfolds. Anita blasted out. We thought you were gone for good, why then did you choose to return back? My mother-in-law said. I was quiet and the tears came back again. You see, those crocodile tears will take you nowhere. It's either you choose to leave or you'll choose to suffer, pick one. Mama said. This was coming from the woman I so-call mother, the woman I thought will fill up the space of a mother in my life. I was an orphan, for crying out loud, I have no one to turn to. At that instance I wished nature didn't rob me of a mother. Mama, this is unfair, what did I do to deserve this ill treatment from you? I just had a miscarriage, I said after I found my voice. My husband was shocked. Miscarriage, were you pregnant? I looked away as the tears welled up again. Honey, don't mind her, she's a witch and witches don't harbor babies in their womb, they eat them. Probably she must have eaten her child, Anita told him. My son, don't worry, miscarriage or not, she's evil. Thankfully Anita is here to give you babies that will bear your names and call you father. Mama assured him with a grin. I knelt on the floor. Mama, please, I am begging you, whatsoever I have done to attract your wrath, please, I am sorry, forgive me, I wept in anguish. Instead, they began to laugh at me, calling me unpleasant names, including the man who walked me down the aisle and made a vow to God and men to always stand by me. He was now against me. After they were done with their incessant laughter, I stood up and proceeded to the bedroom. I longed for death to come, but hell no, death only comes to the merry, but the sorrowful it allows them to wallow in deep anguish for eternity, making them regret their existence. I cried and beckoned on God to intervene in my suffering because I had no one else to turn to. No one to defend an orphan in the hands of a rich family. Precisely my husband's mother. My aunties and uncles regarded me as a curse. I was the first child of my parents. They tried having kids after me, but they failed. It has always been their wish to see me fail. One day, my parents went fishing and it rained heavily that their boat capsized, and that was the last I ever saw nor heard about them. Their bodies were never found. My aunties picked me up and treated me as they wished. I was lucky, I survived them only for me to escape it to another phase of suffering. I just left the frying pan to the real sulfur, fire. After praying, I slept off. I was awoken by a rough kick on my leg. It was no other person than Anita, who had invaded my matrimonial room and ordered me out. I was surprised and I asked her if she was referring to me. She bluntly replied me with a slap, and yes, I returned it back to her. I could take all the nonsense from anyone, not a home wrecker like her. She ran out immediately, screaming and crying. I knew the worst was about to happen. As I stood up to go bolt the door, my husband bounced in. He did hit me again. Raymond, I had a miscarriage a few days ago. I'm still covering. Stop hitting me, my back was aching. Do I seem like I care about your existence or about your useless miscarriage? He pulled me by the hair and pushed me out of the house. He locked me out of the gate, instructing the gateman never to allow me in, otherwise he will lose his job at his own peril. I wallowed in pain. A male neighbor who had been a witness to all the dramas in my home assisted me for the night. Madam, if I'm to advise you, you are too young for all this domestic violence. You are still beautiful and vibrant. I'll advise you to leave that home and go somewhere far away and start up a new life, otherwise you'll die before your time. I was just 26 years old. I gave what he told me a second thought. The problem is that my only nice cousin Tobias was still squatting with someone. Since he was squatting with his friend, there is nowhere I would feel comfortable amidst guys. The next day, my husband stumped into the neighborhood to embarrass John, the guy who helped me. In their dispute, he accused him of sleeping with him. Oga, you be worry, a real fool and a coward to be concise. You get gold, but you throw a pick bronze. He replied. They engaged in a fight. I rushed to separate them, but he attacked me instead. Some neighbors who were present came out to my rescue, but not after backlashing him. He left shamefully, threatening John and I. I was so scared that I thanked John and left his house, even though he insisted that I could stay as long as I wished. I didn't want any trouble to befall him as my husband was influential. It was also nice for a married woman to be found in a bachelor's house. I was a married woman. I stepped out with nowhere to go. I stood out helpless. Up the story building was my mother-in-law and Anita making mockery of me. Anita went as far as throwing out trash on me, but I dodged it. Thankfully it was left over to eat, when everywhere was quiet and calm. I went to pick it. But my kind neighbor came to me and offered me some food instead. He thought I was hungry. I rejected it, but he insisted. I was grateful to him. As I munched the food helplessly, Raymond, Mama and Anita came out of the house fully dressed. Anita was dressed in my expensive clothes and jewelry. She made funny faces at me. I longed to slap the mistress out of her. But that would be a mistake if I so dare it. The painful part was Anita inflicted a pepper spray in my eyes. I screamed for help as they shoved me aside. They drove off. I hit the gate for our gateman to help me, but instead I heard the lock of his door. What a wicked world, as I wallowed in pain for nearly an hour while finding water to wash it off. The spray finally subsided and my sight got back again. At that instant I was fed up, otherwise I would die of their maltreatment. I removed my wedding. It was an infinity sign. A ring that indicates forever. I threw it far away. I proceed to park my luggages and to leave them to enjoy their home. I begged the gateman to open up for me, but he ordered me out. Luckily my house help did help me, but not after wrestling with my gateman. She finally opened the gate for me. I stormed in and parked up. Likewise she did the same. Madam, I'm going with you. If you leave with those people, I'll die. Let me go back to the village. Maybe I might see another person who would give me a job there. I don't want to die before my time. I have 3 siblings to cater for their welfare. I bid her bye and handed her some cash. She appreciated me and left. While I was still parking up, I heard a car horn and the gateman quickly opened the gate. I knew I was doomed. My heartbeat increased. I was so scared, there was nowhere I could escape out. But I was determined to give it a try, so I rolled my boxes out. There he was hitting the gateman for allowing me in the... I started laughing. They were all stunned. He came closer, leaving the gateman. At that moment, I was filled with happiness. I wasn't laughing because he was hitting the gateman. At that instance, I wasn't acting on my own accord. I didn't know why I laughed. Hey, will you stop that mad laughter? He roared. Instead, I increased it. They stared in utter amusement as Anita and Mama went and accept him. He screamed Chinyu's name only to be told she was gone. After laughing uncontrollably for 3 minutes, I stopped and kept calm. He told the gateman to send my belongings in. As he went in, suddenly I became calm as I studied my environment with rapt confusion all written over me. He screamed my name and the fear came back as I hurried in. Chinyu is gone, and it's because of you. I won't get rid of you easily because I paid for you. I must get what I paid for. You'll replace the house help. I concurred with what he had uttered in great panic. Towards the evening, I proceeded with the thought of ending it all. My evil plan was to end their lives, including mine. I must not go down without a fight. I left the house in bid to get foodstuffs to cover up for my evil scheme, and no one suspected anything. On the way out, I met my husband's stepbrother. He is just 2 years younger than Raymond. He is 32 while Raymond is 34. I was filled with excitement as I rushed into his arms for a hug, which he returned as well. He examined my countenance. Mimi, as he fondly calls me. You have drastically changed. He looked at me intently. How, I asked in pretense. You have lost so much weight. Were you sick? I did all I could not to break down in tears. Then the next question broke the camel's back. What's this, bruises all over your body? Is there something you are not telling me? I stared hard at him. He was different from his brother, both in handsomeness, his masculine features, and his behavioral traits. He was the opposite of Raymond. At that instant, I wished I had met him instead. I was still in thoughts when he called me. It's nothing, everything will be fine, I swallowed hard. I followed him back home, and that was how my mission of poisoning them ended. His name is Floyd. He came back from vacation to Nigeria. I guess he wanted to make it a surprise, otherwise he would have informed them to pick him up from the airport. He stormed in while I waited out. He beckoned me to follow him in, but far be it. I was only instructed to go into the house when I wanted to attend to some chores. My new abode was the boys' quarter. Floyd met them all in the parlor, with Anita's head resting on Raymond's laps. My mother-in-law was excited when she saw her son. Raymond welcomed him cordially, but Anita behaved as though he wasn't existing. Raymond, who's the woman, and wise Mimi with so many bruises on her skin. I guess he had realized that I was being mistreated when he saw Anita. Well, I can see you don't have manners. For your information, I'm Anita, and this is my husband's house. Raymond's wife scrambled up from his lap. Are you for real? When did this happen, bro? When did you wed her? Floyd asked inquisitively. Last month, and by the way, who are you? Floyd didn't introduce himself to Anita as he stormed out in anger. He came to me and queried me. Who is that girl in my brother's house? Well, she's your brother's new wife. Tell me you're joking, and you? Floyd asked in bewilderment. The maid, the punching bag, and the illegitimate wife. I've suffered. Your brother and your mother take me as a nobody, just as a piece of trash. I've been beaten severely by your brother, and in the process, I lost a 3-month pregnancy. Do you know the funniest part? He wished I and the baby never existed. Where did I go wrong? I sob. Floyd's expression depicts violence as he didn't allow me to finish the story. He stormed in the house. I knew the worst was going to happen. Both of them have bad tempers inherited from their mother. But Floyd uses his own wisely. I began hearing Floyd's voice. He was yelling down the house. The noises had died down all to kindle with a scream, and that was Mama's voice. I rushed in as I saw Floyd and Raymond fighting dirty on the floor. I had to separate them, otherwise they would injure themselves badly. I was confused on whom to separate, but settled on separating Floyd. At the process, Raymond turned against me, but Floyd defended me. My mother-in-law could only shout and cry as she couldn't separate her sons. Raymond has gotten some injuries like Floyd. The both were heavily built as a result of constant visits to the gym. I took Floyd away to attend to his wound. My mother-in-laws blamed me for initiating enmity in their midst. Floyd refused to sleep in the main house. That night he spoke with anger. He asked why I never informed him earlier. I assured him all was going to be fine, though he wasn't satisfied with the answer. He drew me closer. You mean you have been enduring all these? Truly, my brother is an animal. He doesn't deserve someone like you. You're a rare gem. He drew me closer by his side. My face fell into a dark misery, but he motivated me that things would go back to normal. With Floyd in the house, my peace was gradually restored back, except when he's out. I wasn't treated as a slave any longer. So one evening, while I was done preparing the evening meal for everyone, I had served the meal and made an exit to the door to my abode in order for peace to reign. Floyd held me back. He insisted that I join them to eat. I refused, but Floyd's persistent begging made me sit terrified at the table. The trio, Raymond, his mother, and Anita, stared at me in disgust. But Floyd assured me not to be terrified. Anita took a bite of the egusi and Gary I prepared. She twitched her lips as though she had eaten a sour meal. She poured the contents in a serviette and sipped water. "And what's the meaning of this nonsense you prepared in the form of a meal?" Honestly, I was boiling in anger. Nothing was wrong with the meal. She was just trying to create a show in order to send me out of the dining room or to create havoc. But I was glad I was regaining my lost self-esteem. I looked at her. I felt like punching the living madness out of her. But I couldn't. I only clenched fist, in which Floyd noticed. Floyd smiled as he took her meal and added to his. The expression on everyone was out of the moon. He wiped the plate clean with a serviette and dropped before her. He also took her Gary. "And what's the meaning of this?" she asked, almost teary. "The food is nonsense, and only nonsensical people eat a nonsense meal, and I'm sure you are not a nonsense person." She was taken aback. She never saw that coming. I jubilated in my mind. If music was on, I would have backed it up with a dance. "Baby, do something," she called Raymond. Raymond just stared on in utter disbelief. Mama angrily spoke to me. "Go prepare her another meal. She probably doesn't like what you prepared, and right, this food tastes as though you overspiced it." Raymond stretched out and grabbed his mother's food. He poured the content in mine and wiped off the plate clean with a serviette and placed it neatly before me. He urged me to eat on. I did as he instructed. She was stunned. "Raymond, I can see you have lost your sense of respect, that you no longer have any iota of respect for me. What's the meaning of this?" Mama asked. "Mama, I've never and would never lose any self-respect I have for you. If I still have one reserved for you. Respect, they say, is reciprocal. Until you practice it. I am never going to stop," Floyd said as he dug his hand and picked a piece of chicken. "Raymond, do you realize I could throw you out of the house? Have you gone nuts?" Raymond gave him a dead stare and continued tearing the chicken. "For all I care, you can do nothing." They were all shocked. Anita picked a glass of water and splattered it on me. Raymond refrained me from taking action. "Anita, inasmuch as I don't hit women, I don't tolerate nonsense, but I know how to handle them. One wrong move from you again. I'll let her deal out the nonsense from you, and I assure you'll be a mess by the time she's done. Just give me a dare." He sternly warned her, and she retreated. My thoughts at that moment was for her not to heed to his warning. I was waiting for an opportunity to screw up her mess, the pains she had caused me, and for destroying my marriage. "I have lost my appetite," she said as she angrily left the table. Someone that can't cook is not supposed to have an appetite. You can tell your sugar boob to make an order for you, because you won't eat this. She hisses loudly and left. Raymond follows suit. I had known Raymond as a womanizer, but I never knew he would be under the control of a woman. "And you'll regret this," his mother threatened me. Raymond assured me to eat up. We tore up the remaining pieces of chicken. I couldn't continue eating as I was overfed, so I made away with the leftovers. Same day, Floyd came to my room and we were having a cordial conversation when we heard an abrupt knock at the door. I was about to get the door when Raymond stormed in. "What are you doing in my wife's room?" Raymond asked, depicting rage and jealousy from his tone. Did I hear him well? Did he just say wife? Raymond did as if he never existed as he started scrolling down his phone. I only looked on without uttering a word. He left only to threaten him with some dangerous words. I was disturbed and terrified, but he told me not to worry. He suggested we act as lover birds to stir up the hate. He wanted to be sure his brother still loves me. At first I disagreed, but I wanted to win my husband back. So I stuck to the plan with no love string or intimacy attached. In the presence of everyone, he would hold my hands as we walked together. At first, Raymond behaved as though he never cared when he was around his wife and his mother. But Floyd would tell me he was burning in jealousy. "How are you sure about that?" I asked in confusion. Floyd would only chuckle. One time when Floyd and I were seated at the boys' quarter veranda, I saw Raymond staring at us. I quickly took my eyes off that direction and I told Floyd about it. "My bro still has a reserved love for you in his dark heart. I'm sure he will come begging you in no time, so chill," he assured me. Floyd would spoon-feed me each time we're at the dining table. The duo, Anita and Raymond, would leave the table in annoyance as Raymond would burn in jealousy. My mother-in-law wasn't left out, she would be looking at us irritated. At a point I was fed up with Raymond's attitude, but Floyd would encourage me never to give up fighting for my husband. He would tell me, "Mimi, one day they will realize their mistakes, and they will all come begging." My usual happy self was gradually restoring back, and Floyd was the reason. He would always compliment me on my feminine features, only then did I know I was beautiful. Something Raymond hadn't done since I got married to me. Was it the gift of clothing, shoes and bags he would give me, or was it the love, affection and attention a husband would give to his wife? Floyd was one in a million. He was such a nice person. One bright Saturday that turned into a dark one. Floyd was narrating a humorous story about his ordeal in the state, which made me erupted into an unending laughter. It was so funny that my laughter could be heard in the neighborhood. At that moment Raymond invaded our privacy, all full with rage. "Floyd, what is going on between you and Miracle?" he asked. Floyd ignored him. Floyd was avoiding any quarrel with him. He was more mature than Raymond. That alone triggered his anger. He brought out a pistol and pointed at him. My heart skipped a bit. I panicked. "Raymond, please don't do this, drop down the gun this minute," I cried out. He pointed the gun at me. "Hear yourself speak, harlot. Don't call her that, it's that thing you called a wife that's the main prostitute." He faced Floyd. "One more word from you, I'll forget you are my blood and I'll drive this into your skull." Floyd went into laughter. I was surprised and scared. "Do you think I am scared of your threats? Go ahead and do your worst, I'm not afraid to die because of the truth. If dying is the best option, I would do that for her." To me that was cowardice, but he took it as bravery. My husband faced me with the gun. At that instant Anita came in. She watched Raymond unable to carry his threat. She grabbed the gun from him and that was it. Raymond was in a pool of blood. He had tried to shield me from the bullet. I rolled him over, but he was weak. I began screaming for help as Raymond and Anita hurried away.